Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're taking a look through another batch of my larger format hardback annuals and books from my collection. We've got some really great books to look at today. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so we're starting off with an odd Doctor Who book. So this was Ace, and it was written by the actress who played Ace, which is Sophie Aldred, and Mike Tucker, who was the special effects chap who worked on the final few seasons of Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who. He also worked on Red Dwarf and still quite active today. And back in the day when we had Purple Haze, my shop, they both did a signing when this book got published, along with New Adventures author Paul Cornell. And it was a really great night. This one, sadly, it's got a little bit of foxing, which is a shame because it's like unique and signed to me. But actually, it's a really great book. It was published by Virgin. And when was this? It was, I guess it was mid-90s, I'm guessing, 1996. There we are. So, unfortunately, yes, it's got a bit of foxing. And like a lot of these books we'll see today, they've got some dust and sort of dirt along the top edges. So because of that, we're going to have to do these as we go along, because it's a huge old pile and I don't want to go through them multiple times. So we'll clean each book as we go, but we've got quite a few to get through. That's better. I mean, we're not really going to be able to do much about the foxing inside, unfortunately. It's just on the end papers, and it is sadly what it is. It's just how it's been stored, which is a shame. Now, the wrapper doesn't appear too bad. But I think what we will do is give all the dust wrappers a cursory polish, because although I've had this book from brand new, chances are there is a little bit of wear on it. So I've got a fresh clean duster for today's video, and because it's shiny we can spray it directly on, and we'll give it the old polish, and we'll do these for each book as we go along, but we've got quite a few to get through today. But this is one of a couple of Doctor Who books, and you'll notice that a lot of these are actually even bigger format than the normal annuals. It's because the shelf that these have come off has been sort of fitted for even bigger than regular sort of books, more like coffee table books, you could say. Right, so not sure where we're going to put all these once we've actually cleaned them, so I'm going to make a little bit of room over here. So we've got like a second pile going on. Okay. Now, next book we've got is part of a series on film posters. Now, I've decided, when I got these out, I thought, wow, these are absolutely fantastic. And it has been quite a long time since I've had a proper look through them. And I've never actually shown them on the channel at all. So I thought, well, now would be the perfect time. So you can see there is actually some wear. So I'm actually going to do with this one the polishing first, because you see that sort of that dust line there? It's just historically where it's been stored. But in actual fact, this series of books, film posters, as we'll see, from the 40s, 50s, I've got a few more to show you. I bought all from brand new. I bought them when they were being published. I believe they were like US imports, but I got them when they were first printed during the 90s, and I got them sort of wholesale through the American distributors, which my shop used, which was Diamond Comics at the time. So that's the covers done on this. Now let's do the top edges now. To do the top edges, I'm going to take off this dust wrapper because I feel it might damage it. And you can sort of have a look. You can see how dusty and dirty that is along the top there. The other edges aren't too bad. This bottom edge has got a little bit there. It's almost, I wouldn't say it was like mould or anything. It's just like dust more than anything, you know. I mean, this would have been, we'll check the publishing date in a minute, but I think it was mid-90s. That's made a huge difference, actually. when you have a look inside these, you'll see just how gorgeous they are. Absolutely lovely, lovely, lovely books. So as I'm not going to dwell on these, because once I've done this, I'm going to film a dedicated video looking at the series. But this was the first printing, and it was 2002. There we are. So I don't believe they sort of came out chronologically, like because I did check this series up, and the earliest is the 1930s, but my earliest is the 1940s, and they went up into the 1990s. But since then, they've not done any by decade. They've done them by a particular genre, like they've done film posters of science fiction ones. They've done, I think they've done a westerns one. There is a Hitchcock one which I've got, which is the same sort of people. So there's like series ones like that. But what a great series. Now the next one I've got, which is the film posters of the 1950s. This one's in softback. So it's actually, I never had, mine are a bit of a mixture. So let's once again do the edges. Right. Let's have a look inside. So they all sort of follow a similar sort of format, as you can see, and it's something that I think a little bit has been lost nowadays with movie posters. They don't seem to put so much thought into them, you know. Sometimes the posters were almost as iconic as the movies, weren't they? But I'm a real fan of them. I've got a few in my collection. I never really collected them. I've had several through my hands. I've never really collected them. I used to have a little run of the Star Wars original posters, but I've got rid of them because I had nowhere to put them. And the thing about posters is they need to be out on display. Even the couple that I've got framed up, they're not out on display. I've got an original multi-signed Pulp Fiction Cannes winner poster signed by about 30 cast and crew, which is really, really nice. One of the favourite bits in my entire collection. And I've also got a Dirty Harry Sudden Impact poster signed by Clint Eastwood, and they're both signed posters. You know, that was really, really nice. But I've never ever had them out on display, which is such a shame. But we used to sell quite a few in the shop. I remember getting the Magnificent Seven signed by Robert Vaughan. That was a pretty cool one. And I remember having the original Grease poster signed by Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. And well, we sold that one in the shop, but it was a lovely item. There we are. So that's cleaned that one up. So it's a little bit there, but I think it's more on the poster rather than the book. I think. Yeah, you see that down the bottom there? That's the man with the golden arm in it. Yeah, brilliant. Great series. That was the 50s. And then the 60s I've got in softback again. Big, thick books, these. And this is the British printing of this at 14.95. Doctor Who there. Oh, great stuff, these. Right, I think we'll do the brush first. Yeah, I've been really enjoying going through these large format books, mainly because I'm coming across stuff like this, which I haven't looked at pretty much since the books were published. So I'm going to really enjoy going through these in a bit more detail in a dedicated video for my other channel, and I'm going to do that as soon as I finish filming this one, because it's a bank holiday Monday in the UK, which means there's not a lot going on, and although it's a really, really hot day, we're having a bit of a hot spell here in the UK at the moment, which is great. At the moment, the neighbours aren't out doing their gardens or anything, simply because a lot of people have either gone away or it's just too hot to do anything. So I'm making the most of the quiet while we're here to to get these books cleaned. There we are. So all of these are coming out really, really nicely. Oh, what a great book this is, isn't it? If you're a fan of movies, then there's a lot here to enjoy. And not just that, but a lot of the movie posters, of course, were reused on the book jackets. Not all of them, but some of them definitely were. Lovely stuff. So that's the 1960s. Now the 1970s is another hardback, and it's showing it's really, really dusty along the top. It's got a dust shadow there. So we'll clean, and I have a feeling this might have been the very first one, but we'll clean the covers first of all, and then we'll take off the cover, because you see, look how dirty it is. Wow, that big dust shadow there has come right off, which is brilliant. That's what I was hoping. And so many great films came out in the 1970s, didn't they? It was definitely a great era. I mean, every decade has got its highlights, of course, but the 70s, there was a lot of great stuff in there. And it's still a decade I sort of enjoy watching, movie-wise. But I would say I was a movie lover. Definitely TV and film is something I've always been very much into. Okay, now once again we'll take the dust wrapper off before we start brushing the book down, because it's definitely a little bit the worse for wear, this underneath. Let's just get a bit of dry duster there. A bit as I sort of look at the bits that I've done in these videos. The collection looks so great now. I'm so pleased with it. After giving these all a good clean. But yeah, we got some fantastic books to show you today. A really great lot of books. There isn't a duff book amongst it. I don't think, anyway. There we are. So this was, so let's have a flick through and take a glance at the 1970s. Some good stuff here, eh? What an era. I'm going to look forward to going through these in a bit more detail. When did this one come out? It just feels earlier. Yeah, 1998. I have a feeling this was the first one that they printed, was this one for the 70s. Just a feeling. I'm trying to think back to when, I just can't remember how they were published, but as I said, they've done the 1930s and they did the 1990s, so which I haven't got, sadly. But I did look, and I think on the whole you can still buy this series of books from places like Amazon. And when I looked, a couple of them were cheaper in hardback than paperback, which was a bit weird. So I don't know why that was. So here we are with film posters of the 80s. Another great decade, of course. And amazing to think how long ago this was. This was 2001. So this was for the paperback anyway. Okay. Yeah, with this particular lot of books today, there's no other way to do this except clean each book, sort of all the different stages as we go along. just because it's such a huge pile. If you could see the huge pile here, you would see why we're having to do it this way. But hopefully it's agreeable to you. It's a bit not quite like paperbacks, although we are due to do some more paperbacks soon. In fact, next week will be a paperback week. So let's have a flick through the 1980s. Oh yeah, lots of recognisable ones here. Yeah, they've got some good choices, haven't they? They know their movies, these guys. They've chosen the right ones. There we are. That's it on that particular series, but they look good. Next, another huge tome. It's the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. What a book this one is. Oh, the weight of it, I can barely lift it. It's that big. It's awesome. I actually sold this book when it came out. Now, before we delve inside then, it's got a bit of a... Look at the dust there, compared to, say, the bottom, which has just got a little bit there. So, we'll start on the bottom first. It's actually quite tricky to brush this because of its weight, believe it or not. But I'm sure some of this is just dust or like spider webs or something, you know. There we are. You can see how easily that came off. Okay. Oh. It's nice, it's got this like animation cell on the inside, isn't it? Which is rather nice. This is a great book, this one. Do they still make great books like this? I don't know. I can't even remember when this one came out. It's got these lovely fold outs as well. It's gorgeous. A real Hanna-Barbera fan. I've always loved their cartoons, particularly when I was growing up. You can see it's all the series, plus episode guides, history of the series, people who did the voices. Absolutely fantastic. Brilliant, eh? I'm just trying to see when this was published. I would really like to know. 1999. So 24 years ago as we film this. And yeah, it was published by Virgin. I'm sure you can still get it, but I really don't know what you'd have to pay for something like this. But it's one of the greatest books on Hanna-Barbera, I guess, that ever got published. Now we've got yet another poster art book. I said there'd be a few more. It's the same sort of guys, it's the same people who were involved with the film posters series, but this one's specifically on Hitchcock. So I think what we'll do, we'll give the cover a polish first, because that's definitely showing. Look at that, it's got a security label on the inside that's bled through. Blimey O'Reilly, that's a bit nasty, isn't it? Makes me wonder where I actually bought this one from. I'm a big Alfred Hitchcock fan. I really am a fan of his movies, and when they were all restored, I think initially for like DVD, and then they got upscaled again for Blu-ray back in the 1990s, there were extras that were on those DVDs about the restoration process that I found absolutely fascinating, and it got me into Hitchcock in quite a big way. And I pretty much went through and I watched every movie. Obviously some of them I'd seen countless times, but I pretty much watched his entire output over the course of about 2 years. I remember having real issues tracking some of them down. They were on obscure like Criterion DVD releases and things like that, but it was very, very satisfying. I watched them all in order, right from his very, very earliest ones in the 1930s, and it was a A rewarding old process, I can tell you. Right, so that cover was quite a bit worn in actual fact. That, of course, I recently went into the London Underground of Euston Station, which had got sealed in 1960, and there was still the picture, the movie poster for Psycho on the London Underground was still on the wall, and I got my photo taken next to it. So when I edit this, I'll try and slip that photo in. So that's the jacket done. Let's take it off. So yeah, it's got some Foxy inside. Look, you see that label there that caused that stain there? That was a bookshop security label of some sort, possibly in one of the bigger London bookshops. So yeah, unfortunately this one's got that same sort of level of foxing that we saw with the Doctor Who book at the start. But nothing I can really do about it now. I'm hoping that the actual book itself is fine. Now, got some dust around the edges, so let's do that first. As I said, I'll include this Hitchcock book with my dedicated video on my other channel to look at in a bit more detail. Right, let's have a quick skim through. Here we are, some record covers there. Oh, look, some of the book jackets. How nice is that? I think I've got Psycho, and I'm not sure if I've got Rope, but that'd be something to collect, wouldn't it? All the different book jackets, like front of house stills. Oh, what a great book this is. Well, I'm going to enjoy going through these. Lovely. Yeah, I do love a good Hitchcock film. I prefer his 50s and 60s ones. That for me is his absolute dream period. I don't mind the early ones, I don't mind the 70s ones, but these 50s and 60s is like just, he was at his peak for, in my opinion. When was this published? So it's the same people who did the other books that we just looked at. And this was also 1999. Good stuff. Okay, this is a book I absolutely loved basically from when it came out, and they did a follow-up as well, which we'll have a look at. So it's the book of ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, and they were the company behind lots of special effects from all my sort of favourite movies. And as you can see, this one's been through the war a little bit, but I absolutely love it. So we shall, yeah, it's looking a bit sorry for itself. So we're going to give it a polish first. I got to admit, I haven't had this off the shelf for many years, and I suppose it's the sort of thing, this first book here looks at the origins of ILM and how it became what it became, and then the second book sort of looks at how things were turning digital, and I guess there's never been a third book because the whole thing, so many special effects now are done on computer, and the art, shall we say, of using miniatures has sort of been lost, really. The last great proponent of it was Phil Tippett, wasn't it? He did so much for Lucasfilm, and he embraced the digital age. He said there's no getting away from it, so just embrace it, and that's exactly what he did. This really was in quite a state, this one. Don't know how many years I've had it. I think I remember seeing a couple of my mates having it. I think I've got to get this book. It was that good. And this has made quite a difference to it, but it's still, it's been through the wars a little bit, but that's because it's been read time and time again. But it is looking a lot better than when we first picked it up. Look at the dirt we've been getting off there. Now, I'll get rid of the dust wrapper. Now, I see it's £35, so this was the British printing of it, even though it was, it says Columbus books. And I will kind of run my slightly damp cloth against the insides here as well, because we can get away with that. These are equally dusty. Now, when the second book came out, which we'll have a look at in a minute, I was actually working in the book trade, and we had an account with Virgin, because Virgin were publishing all the Doctor Who books at the time. And I got a promotional folder for the second book, which I've still got tucked away somewhere. And I was surprised it wasn't with the book, but I have still got it. There we are. So I think we've got that wrapper looking as good as possible. Now, using the clean side of the cloth, we'll just give this a wipe off. In fact, the brush is more effective. It's got just bits of dust there. The all-important top edge there, so you can see the sort of level of dust there. Loads coming off. Fantastic. Wow. I think that's made a huge difference to this one. Let's have a flick through, shall we? Oh. Once again, I'm thinking I'll probably do a dedicated video on both the ILM books, because there's so much to actually see inside here, and I'd like to sort of go through it in detail. But as you can see, for someone who was into the first 10 years, someone who was actually into Star Wars and special effects in such a big way back then, this was really something. Of course, this was the origins of Pixar as well. And I'm so glad they did this sort of record. Lots and lots of Star Wars in here, as you'd imagine. Indiana Jones, anything that the company worked on, it's covered here. That great matte painting from the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he goes down and hides the Ark of the Covenant. And brilliant, isn't it? What an absolutely gorgeous book this is. It really is. And if you get the chance to grab this one at a reasonable price, I don't know what they go for these days, but you'll do very well. It's a beauty. And definitely worthy of a dedicated video to look through both of those books, which I will do at some point. It's definitely on the on my main channel there. Introduction by George Lucas. And let's look when this came out. First published in Great Britain, 1986. There we are. So almost 40 years ago this one came out, and it's still a fantastic book today. So let's get this back in its freshly cleaned sleeve, which is looking an awful lot better than it did before we started. Done a good job there. Yeah, I mean, it's not mint, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. I almost think that one would deserve sort of putting in like a plastic sleeve of some sort, like a glassine sleeve. Right, and here is the follow-up, probably in similar sort of condition. Oh, there we are, look. There was the little promo that I was going on about. So we'll have a look at this first of all, because this is also dusty. God, the books weigh so much. So as I said, when this book was published, I worked in the book trade, and this second one got published in 96, so 10 years later, by Virgin, and it was £60 this one when it came out, as opposed to 35 for the first one. This is just like a little sample. taking it into the digital age. But this one, once again, it's got some dusting on, so let's give it the spray. Oh, I'm so glad I found this. I thought it was with the other book, and it was almost like stuck to the top of the actual book. So well, I'm glad we found it, because it will make the my dedicated video all the more interesting. So I shall try and do that within the next sort of month, now that I've got these books out. I'll leave them here in the studio to film when I've got a spare half an hour or so, because I think they'll warrant going through that long, because they're that lovely. Simple as that. And I'll do a little bit of research and see how easy they are to get today as well, because I've no idea if they're still in print or if they ever did a third one. And if they're not in print, sort of how much they go for. They might be expensive. But that's like the little preview, carrying on from the first one. And here is the actual book. It's the same sort of dimensions as the other one, same size, perhaps a tiny bit thinner. So I think let's clean the front jackets again. Great stuff, these. See, I said you're going to be treated to some really good books today, and you are. You're being treated to some of my absolute favourites. And I would be very curious to know if you've seen books in these videos that have thought it's made you go away and think, oh, I'm gonna find a copy of that. It looks brilliant, sort of thing. I said, being involved in books for so long, and then doing it as a living as well, you got to see the very cream of the crop, I suppose, of what was getting published. There we are. That's got that. Now we are going to need to take this off, I think, to give it to clean the book itself properly. And very interesting, it's got like the folded over dust wrapper again. So once again, I'm just going to clean the edges before I pop it to one side. Now I've got a little bit of polish still on there, just enough to give the inside edge a clean as well, because that's really picked up dirt. Look at that. A bit disgusting, to be honest. That's why we're here, to get these books back to looking as good as possible. There we are. So I'm happy with that dust wrapper. Now, underneath, no doubt, they've really gone to town to make it look very, very similar to the first volume, haven't they? In their day, Virgin were such a great publisher. They really, really were. I don't think Virgin Publishing even exists anymore, does it? I don't know. It was one of the arms that was started by Richard Branson, and I know he really, really looked after his staff. I knew 2 Virgin reps in my time, Virgin book reps, who used to come into the shop, and they all spoke so highly of him as a person. And I met Branson once, actually, a long time back in the 80s. They spoke of him very highly as a person, and they said Virgin Books itself was a good company to work for. I do remember Branson being Branson. He owned his own private island, and that's what I was told, and he flew his entire publishing workforce to his private island for their annual trade show. Imagine that, eh? Right, let's have a look at this. Okay. So yeah, it's probably very, very similar sort of format to the last book. Super gorgeous, but includes, the next 10 years. So the digital, of course they worked on what was it, Forrest Gump, of course, where he's got him meeting Kennedy and things like that. God, that was so clever, wasn't it? Back to the Futures. all the top films that are now classics of their type, to do those amazing special effects that was so memorable, it was done by ILM. Rocketeer, that was an underrated film, wasn't it? That really was. Yeah, great stuff. Really heavy book. Fantastic. It is in the truest sense of the word, an absolute delight of a coffee table book. It's the sort of thing that I've always loved, you know. Always loved. Willow, that was from. Oh, look at this. Yeah. Unfortunately, a couple of pages slightly stuck together. Nothing too bad, thankfully. We've had that with some of these super glossy books. It's the sort of paper. November 86. So yeah, it was done like 10 years after that first one came out. But I think they did a very, very good job. So I'm wondering if they ever carried it on. You know, I don't know how well this book sold. I seem to remember, now I think about it, that we stocked both books at the time. They brought the first one back into stock, into print rather, and we did have both books stocked in my shop side by side, and yeah, I seem to remember they were both around. Okay, so this one I actually bought off eBay, and it's just a little bit of fun really. It's not a collectible book by any means. I bought it for the content. I mean, it was just prior to Lego going really crazy, and it was like a few quid really, you know. I don't think in fact I'm sure it's still in print, they've probably updated it, but it was like a little overview of the Lego phenomenon really. And at the time when my children were growing up, we went to Legoland a few times, and I do collect the classic space Lego, although I haven't bought any for a long time now because I haven't really got room to display it. But I've got a box of the classic 70s space Lego. But this was just quite a good fun book. It had been well reviewed, and people said, oh yeah, it's a great little overview, sort of the history of Lego, and they sort of look at all the different aspects of it. But this was definitely published before Lego went, I would say, gangbusters, which is what it is today. You know, Lego really exploded, and it was always there, of course, but I think it got very, very big, and we started getting the movies, and they were opening their own retail stores. This book was published before all that sort of kicked in, if that makes sense. As I said, it's got a bit of a tear there. It's not exactly mint by any means, but I didn't buy it for that. I bought it solely for the contents. And unfortunately, to give it the proper clean, we are going to need to take it out of the wrapper, which I would imagine is probably how most of these exist, is out of the dust wrap, because you see the top is dirty and it needs its own polish, you see, the top edges. There we are. So by doing that, let's clean that top edge, and then we can get the brushing properly. So no shortcuts here today, I'm afraid, but this is one of my most enjoyable sort of Lego books, this one. I really did enjoy this, and well, you'll see why. It's got some great creations and stuff. Good little history. It's Dorling Kindersley with the publisher, and they are like a branch of Penguin nowadays. And Dorling Kindersley still do have a real reputation for eye to detail and absolutely fantastic books aimed at children. And that's what this one is. But it's just great, as you can see. Like some of the little history. There's my space, my Lego space, which I loved as a kid. Yes, good. This is a nice bit. It's dirt cheap to pick up, honestly, this one, the Ultimate Lego, but you'll probably find it for just a few pounds on places like eBay, which is where I bought mine. It was really easy to get, so if you fancy it, that's quite a nice little book, that one. Next is this one, which is, it's probably not that great in all honesty, Monsters and Aliens from George Lucas. It's an unofficial sort of tie into the worlds of sort of George Lucas, so it's not exactly the greatest, but I sort of picked it up because it was a book that was published when I had my shop. So let's have a little flick through and then we'll give it a clean. But just some of his sort of concepts and stuff. It's got, you know, obviously the Star Wars stuff in here, but it's not the greatest. I don't know quite how they managed to publish this without saying it's Star Wars. But 1993, it was in that, and he did do a forward, it was in that sort of period of time when Star Wars hadn't come back. You know, the Phantom Menace was still a long way off, and Star Wars itself still had this massive following. I mean, I was massively into it, and I was doing great guns with it in my shop, but for some reason the powers that be thought the franchise was dead, and it took an awful lot to get Star Wars back into the public eye, really, didn't it? You know, just seeing a bit of dust on the bottom edge there. I'll pop this one back in, and then I'll give the dust wrapper a fresh clean. But yeah, not the greatest of books, this, and I remember thinking, oh, that's a bit not, you know, it's a bit of a disappointment, really. But I kept it all these years as sort of part of my Star Wars collection, and I'm not, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's scarce or anything like that, but I can't imagine it's sold very well, you know. I just can't see it. Because if you'd have seen it in the flesh in a bookshop, I don't think you would have been in. You wouldn't have. And so I thought, oh, I've got to get this book. But if you'd seen it online, possibly you might have been tempted. I don't know. But there you go. Evidently, I was. Okay, now this next one is actually one that it's an art book which ended up, as I said, I'm doing a big run of my larger format books, and this one on the artist Mucha, I think is how you pronounce it, and I picked up when I was in Prague, and it's got lots of little bits and pieces, little postcards of his artwork. You recognise the style. It's very much like Toulouse-Lautrec, very similar to that. And it was just in pretty sure I picked this up in Prague. There was an exhibition of the artist's work. Yeah, Art Nouveau is what it's called, and I very much like that style. So this shouldn't be too bad, because I said I bought it brand new, and I don't think it was that long ago. It was probably 2006, something like that, so not quite 20 years old. But yeah, I've got a few art books in my collection. We haven't really touched on them yet. I've got some nice books by Taschen, which ones again are absolutely enormous, some of them. I'm a big fan of Taschen books, as you'll see as we go along. So yeah, that one, yeah, didn't need an awful lot doing to it, but quite cool all the same. Okay, cracking on then with the last little batch of these large format books with the Only Fools and Horses story. Really great book this, and absolutely loved Fools and Horses as a series. Always been a big fan of them ever since the sort of the early days, and it had run its course by the time that it was finished, and I think it did maybe go on just a season or two too long, but it's fine. It's you know, it was what it was in its day, and I think it, you know, quite rightly regarded as an absolute British sitcom classic, and one which is still quite fun to go back to and look at all these years later. It's been a long time. I haven't been any new Fools and Horses for an awful long time, but great stuff, and yeah, recommended. Now this is a good little history of it, so we'll take the dust wrapper off so that I can give the top edges a clean again. This one's not too bad, which is pretty good. We'll have a look and see when it was actually published. This was published in 1998. The BBC Books. Once again, we had in the shop, we did have an account with BBC, so Ah, great stuff. Yep, superb series. One of the best. Definitely one of the best. There we are. That's fine, isn't it? Yeah, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that one. Lovely. Next one. I don't know if on my other channel you saw my video on the Museum of Brands, which was basically the collection of this guy, Robert Opie. Well, he did the fantastic decade books, a decade of this, a decade of that. The 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the wartime ones. But he did this one, which is like a bit of a compilation of them all. And this one is not part of the scrapbook series, which he did. This was something a bit different. And I don't remember seeing this at the Museum of Brands when I visited recently. So it may be that this one's actually out of print now. So bear that in mind. You might need to struggle a little bit if you fancy this one, but it is really good. Robert Opie's known for collecting old packaging and advertising material, and he's got probably the best collection in the world. A lot of it is, a tenth of it is on display at the Museum of Brands, and it's just an astonishing collection. It really, really is. So if you ever get the chance to go to visit the Museum of Brands, please do. And also check out video, check my video out, because I do a full walkthrough of the museum, and I think you'll love it if you like this sort of stuff. There's a slightly marked boards underneath, so just around the edges. So I'm just giving them a clean as well. I think this one will come up absolutely fine. Like a lot of these, it was just that top edge dust. I'm so glad I didn't leave these any longer, because they were more than overdue, a decent clean. But let's have a little look through this one. As you can see. And this is exactly what the museum is like. It's absolutely phenomenal. Just astonishing collection across everything, you know, just amazing. Highly, highly recommended. Great book, great place to visit. As I said, the scrapbook books are worth looking at as well. And it goes right back to sort of Victorian times. Trying to see when this was published. 1990. Yeah, 33 years ago. Lovely though, isn't it? What a great book that is. And Robert Opie, still around today. And as I said, the museum, you've just got to visit. Get a feel for it with my video, by all means. But the video just won't do it justice, because when you go there, you're literally just blown away by just how amazing it is. Here's a bit of fun. So this is more in the realm of the annuals that we were doing. It's a massive, massive Paddington book, and it is based on the TV series, which I absolutely loved. Ivor Wood, yeah. So we'll have a look through first, make sure there's nothing internal that needs sorting out, and then we'll do the outside boards. Absolutely loved the TV Paddington series. They were just like little 5-minute shorts. And they were great. And I don't know when this one came out. 1976. There we are. Wow. Yeah, so it's absolutely fine inside, but the boards are almost like, well, basically, They've got 40 years worth of age on them, you know, and they just need this little sparkle. See along the top edges there, it's cleaning it up. And I would do this with all my sort of books. I'm wondering if this ever actually came in a dust wrapper. I think it's probably unlikely, but you never can tell sometimes with these things. Yeah, I think this was actually dirtier than it looked. It's hard to pick up the dirt on it, but it was there. Definitely was there. This was a little find off eBay I got a long time ago. Yeah, that was, look at the dirt that's come off. This was brand new. Don't forget this cloth when we started. That is actually really, really bad. So I'm not going to even reuse that bit of cloth anymore. And I just have a nice fresh bit here for the rest of the books, because we've still got a few to go through. I think that's made quite a difference to that one. It definitely looks cleaner, you know. So yeah, I think that was probably much more worse than we thought. Now here's another lovely book. Remember selling this one when it was first published. I believe it's been updated now, but the Pixar-pedia. So it's a look at the worlds of Pixar up to the point when it was published. And, you know, as I said, I've always been a big fan of this. And I can see this one has got some age-related staining along the edges here. So we'll leave it in the book, and I'm going to get the polish on, because this is just the thing that this polish will work into. But yeah, this is another one of those great books. And show me a person, you know, if you look at the output of Pixar, even if you're not really into that sort of style of animation, story-wise, there's bound to be one there that sort of resonated with you. I think for me, I really love, and because my children were growing up when a lot of these films were being first released, I particularly enjoyed WALL-E. We enjoyed, obviously, the first and second Toy Stories immensely, but the one that I really loved, and to this day I still think as a standalone movie it is just great, is Ratatouille. So I don't know, but I love them all. I love the animation style, and I love sort of the Pixar way, you know, Finding Nemo I loved as well. I really do. I love them all. It's just they're so good. They really are. So yeah, we've got quite a bit of dust off there, but that's cleaned that one up very nicely. You can sort of see where the dirt along the edges has cleaned it, but I'll take it out of the wrapper now so that we can do the four edges. And as expected, a bit like some of the other ones, there's a little bit of dust has come through. So to do that, I'm going to spray some polish straight on, and then this dirt along the edges here I can attack like that. And that's a very common trait with dust wrappers. There we go, that's that side done. There we are. Okay. Now, let's have a look. So the top edge doesn't seem too bad. It's actually slightly squished a little bit. So on our fresh bit of cloth, that's basically cleaning the top edges here. That's what this is doing initially. Look at that. Jeez. That's really bad, isn't it? The sides will be okay, and the bottom is probably okay. But yeah, that top edge was awful. And now we can get the brush in. there we are, and I think that's it. So finally we can have a little gander inside. Yeah, great stuff. There's so many memorable bits from the movies, isn't there? There really, really is. In fact, I've got a little Wally up on my shelf over there. Can I reach him? Yeah, look at that. There's my little Wally. I keep him in my studio here. As I said, I'm a big Pixar fan, and we all are here. I think they're just great. Absolutely great. What's this? Oh, look at that. Monsters Inc. in Blu-ray. That must have come with it. A little flyer inside. So this book definitely got reprinted and updated, but this, I believe, is the original printing. So I'd love to know when it was published, because I bought it when it first came out, and look at that. There's no printing history in there. Sometimes with these books they pop them on the back. It says 2009. There we are on the back, and here we are. It's at the back page here. So Dorling Kindersley, that's that great publisher we've seen before today, and yeah, the first printing 2009. But as I said, it definitely had a re-release, because but like today, Pixar are publishing like a movie a year, aren't they, pretty much? So I think they still are, aren't they? So the book did get updated, but that's the original one, and yeah, it's great. Okie doke. Right, now we've only got a handful left to go, but here we are. So here's the next one. Plymouth, which is where I'm from, a shattered city. This is Plymouth during the war, 1939 to 1945. Now, Plymouth's top historian is a guy called what's his name again? His name is Chris Robinson. How could I forget that? So Chris Robinson, and he's done lots and lots of books on Plymouth throughout the ages, but this is one that was done by someone else, and I've got a few books on Plymouth history, but this is one I didn't have, so I picked it up at the time, and it was half price in the local WH Smith, so I picked it up. It was from Holsgrove, who's like a local publisher. So that's the covers done. So I whack the camera. There we are. That seems like it hasn't bled to the inside. There we are. A little bit of dust, but nothing too bad. So obviously of interest to people who live in Plymouth, not a lot of interest to people who live outside of the city or have no real sort of connection to it. But I'm a real Plymouthian. I was born here and I lived here all my life. So for me, you know, there's a lot in here to take from it, you know. There we are. Originally published in 1991, reprinted in 2008. So quite a recent book for what, compared to most of what we're looking at today. Now the next book, I absolutely loved it as a kid, and it's this Doctor Who one here, and it was published by Marks and Spencer's St. Michael, and it's Doctor Who and the Daleks omnibus. This is my original one from when I was a kid, and I have already popped it into a protective dust wrapper, which will take off, because I believe that wrapper has already been cleaned. It was one that I did beforehand, so there's no way I'm going to be able to get it any better than that, but it doesn't look too bad to me. But I will give the actual boards a bit of a clean. So this included 2 Doctor Who stories, which was Planet of the Daleks and the Genesis of the Daleks, both by Terrance Dicks, and it's also got some rather funky pictures inside. I can't remember who the illustrator is, but they're brilliant. And this was a book I absolutely loved. Simple as that. It was just great. Superb artwork throughout. Just the business, this. As a young boy, I just loved it. Loved it to death. Simple as that. Yeah, so that was, they did them in the wrong order. That was Planet of the Daleks before they did Genesis. This artwork's almost, it brings back so many memories to me. Just love it. There's Genesis of the Daleks. What a great story that was. Probably my favourite Doctor Who to this day. So good. What a great book this was. Only ever had the one printing. As I said, it was sold through Marks and Spencer's, which was the chain, 1976. Good stuff. I love it. A lot of nostalgia tied up with that particular one. I'll just give it. It is just the top edges that need a dust. I said, I have a feeling I may have cleaned this one recently, well, within the last 5 years, so it's just a cursory bit of a clean there. As I said, I've actually protected the dust wrappers on that because it's quite a delicate one. And then the last book, and it's an even bigger one, so I'm hoping it'll fit in. It's, oh, there we are, the official James Bond movie poster. Can you spot the dust in the top right corner? I don't see how it's got that bad, personally. But let's, it's like someone's chucked flour over it or something. It's that dusty, but easily, it's not a super glossy cover, so I'm not putting any extra polish on here, but I am just giving it the wipe over. Now, this is published in the UK by Box Tree, and I actually had 2 copies of this because I had one which was damaged, and I pulled a picture out, the poster for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And when I met George Lazenby at one of the trade shows, one of the memorabilias in Birmingham, I got Lazenby to sign it, and I've since had that framed up. And this book will also be in my movie posters video. So sadly, it's got some foxing inside, which is a bit of a shame. Fortunately, nothing I can do about that. Just how a few of my books sadly have gone. And there it is on the back. Look, you see the foxing? So let's see what we can do about that. Probably not very much. Yeah, it's gone into the boards there a bit. When it happens, there's not a great deal you can do. Obviously, it shouldn't get any worse because the books are in a really dry environment these days, you know. But I think potentially in one of the places where I was moving house, a little bit of damp has got in to some of these really large format books. So it'll be interesting to see how it's survived inside, if any of the pages are stuck together or anything like that, you know. I hope not. But it wouldn't be the end of the world, but I'm sure you can still buy this. But I wouldn't want to have to get a replacement copy for such a, as you'll see, gorgeous book. Look at this. So yeah, it looks like it goes up to as far as, you know, World Is Not Enough, so the end of the Brosnan run. Which should probably give us a clue of when this was actually published. I'm guessing about, you know, early 2000s, probably this one came out. I used to have quite a run of James Bond posters. I had a few of the 70s ones through my hands, and we had a few in the shop as well. None of the 60s ones, but we had them going as far back as Spy Love Me onwards was the earliest we ever had. As you can see, the Bond, you know, posters, they're almost iconic, aren't they? But there we are. This was the last book for us to have a look at today. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Something a bit different. I think that the choice of books was really good today, and what a good shelf that is on my from my collection 2001. There we are. If you have enjoyed it, don't forget to give it the thumbs up. Do please hit that subscribe button if you've not already for regular cleaning videos. Next week, and we haven't really discussed it, but next week is going to be paperbacks. I'm suspecting it will be Pan. I think Pan is the next publisher to do. So I think we're going to be doing a box of vintage Pan paperbacks next week, if all goes to plan. But there we are. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.